O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but Thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
To start off with, Meme Magick. Well, the case that I'll be making is that Meme Magick is real. It is real, and it looks like Ted Gunderson's already onto where we're going, and that is, you notice the way I spelt magic. Magic with a K. Those of you who are in the know already understand that that has to do with Aleister Crowley and the school of thelemic magic, which thelema, again, is the Greek word for will, and it's a magical system of worshiping one's will. Do what thou wilt. This is the highest of the law. This is part of the thelemic teaching. So when we start to look into a gentleman named Austin Osman Spare, he was a student. He was a sort of a brief student of Aleister Crowley, and he's kind of noted for really getting and advancing sigil magic. You've heard me talk about sigil magic. Sigil magic is the fact that we can then take non-physical desires, intentions, and manifest them physically through symbols, and then charge those symbols through the psyches of people who look at them, or we ourselves do. So sigil magic is the basis, as we'll get into, for meme magic. Sigil magic comes from, in the most noteworthy way that is practiced now, from Austin Osman Spare, student of Aleister Crowley, and it's going to be tied to chaos magic. And so we're going to tie all this back together with Kek, Pepe, the Frog, Kermit, Jordan Peterson, and the liminal character, the ancient Egyptian god Kek of chaos. And so first, where I want to start then is introducing memes and the sort of introduction to where I want to go with everything. And that is meme warfare, in my estimation, is the battlefront of the cultural and spiritual war occurring in the age of information. So you've heard this many times before. It's not just me, that we are in the age of information, that information is the ultimate currency. And with social media, with the interconnection of communicative systems, making, what type of information you're acquiring, the quality of information, this is everything, right? Because we have unlimited information at our fingertips. And memes are a term that I'm sure most of you are already aware that, we need. Where's Made by Jim Bob when we need him? By Richard Dawkins, the biologist Richard Dawkins, the noted atheist. He actually, in a 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, his book, The Selfish Gene, talked about memes, and memes as self-replicating units of information. Memes are to information what genes are to biology. And so this is really, really important to grasp, that memes were first coined by Richard Dawkins. And the way we understand memes, they weren't graphic pictures. A meme isn't a graphic picture with Pepe or the ortho Chad. That's not what a meme is. Yes, we call those memes based on what they're doing, which is the brevity of the communicative process they're participating in. That is the meme. The meme is the smallest unit of information. And so that's why these low-quality, pixelated images are memes, in the sense that they're spreading, they're self-replicating informative systems that are these basic building blocks of information, of essentially paradigms. And that's where I'm going to be going with this sort of meme magic, because I actually have there's a scholar named Eagle Aspram. I actually have his book right here, The Problem of Disenchantment. He's a Western esoteric scholar in, I believe he's in either the UK or in Amsterdam. I think he's in Amsterdam. But he has an article that he wrote on the politics of magic, and talked about how in 2016, with the Trump presidential election, it actually split different hermetic orders of the Golden Dawn, this or that, from the right wing to the left wing, and that the 2016 election, and really is where this whole meme magic thing really gets going, even in the phrase. A lot of people believe that these memes contributed to the election of Donald Trump. But it turns out that there is actually a war between right and left-wing magical groups that are occurring through the entity of politics. And so politics have become a battlefield for magic. And people, there was witches. I remember when Trump was president, they were talking about doing different like Wicca rituals and stuff like that with their menstrual blood. But this has also been true for the right wing. And this is where eventually we're going to dive into Pepe. We're going to dive into the frog, Keck, and all that stuff. But remember, memes are to information what genes are to biology. And so when we start thinking about these memes, the tattoos are a meme. Colored hair is a meme. The way we dress is a meme. And so when you start looking at Generation Z versus millennials or minor stuff, these are memetic processes. The differences in the way they dress, saying based or Chad, these are memetic processes. These aren't memes in the sense that you think it is, like a meme that you can pass on through a JPEG. But this is the definition of what a meme is. And so it's interesting when, Dr. Aspram, in his description of the politics of magic, talked about how we are essentially within a period of chaos, that on both sides of this magical order, they perceived politics essentially leading us into a point of chaos, which, of course, we don't disagree with that. But this battle is playing out by those who are essentially worshiping one's own will. And that's where this magical, and the way I spelt Meme Magick, and this is considered the way that it's often used, that's why I spelt it this way, because in a way, the meme wars aren't really a Christian war. The meme wars are really at the highest level a sort of right-wing magical process and a left-wing magical process, and they're competing against each other through these symbolic semiotic systems, which are infused with their own will due to the sigilization process, the sort of magical process of taking one's intention and desires and manifesting it into the world. That is a real thing. And so when we start to look at the 2016 Trump election, the 2020 election, what are we seeing? Well, 2020 and the lockdown, this is a memetic process. This is part of the meme wars. This is part of the meme magic. And you'd say, whoa, what are you talking about? Okay, let's pretend that all the Pepe memes and the Keck memes, let's say they did contribute to ultimately Donald Trump winning the presidential election in 2016. Do you think that those who are interested in magical rituals and the practice of ritual magic are just going to lay to the side and allow these processes to occur? Or do you think they're going to fight back using magical processes? And so what do I mean? This was a problem. Actually, multiple people came up to me in Montana asking, what do you mean by magic? What is magic? And magic is ultimately the manipulation of perception, but it's more than that. It's the use of language. It's the ability of man to manifest, to conjure, to contact non-local entities, to take desires and manifest them physically. However, there's always an exchange. There's always an exchange, and the Bible talks about this. As Christians, we recognize that magic is real. No doubt. No doubt about that. And so when we look then at 2020, and so magic, let me explain what magic is. Magic is me essentially creating some type of ritualistic process, some type of theurgic process to manifest my will. Now, at these higher levels of memetic magic, you're manifesting your will into essentially a paradigm, a column of belief to get people to see and live inside the paradigm that you're creating. And so let me point, again, we've talked about this, and this is just, this is a quick example in English, but when we start thinking about magic and language and how it manipulates our perception, Let me show you one example. And I've done this before, and some of you guys have seen Jordan Maxwell, God rest his soul, are aware. But, the most important thing God created for us to stay alive is water. Water. And so what is the most important thing in the man-made world? Well, that's money. And so is it no coincidence that our linguistic metaphors, our similes of money and water are the same? So where do you find banks? You find banks on sides of riverbanks. Riverbanks direct the flow of the currency, our cash flow. That's why you liquidate something when you turn it into cash. That's why you're trying to stay afloat and not drown in debt. That's why you're trying to make it rain. That's why you can freeze assets. So we see how money is associated linguistically with water, and this plays on people's psyches, whether they're conscientious of it or not, and that's meme magic. Meme magic is creating memes that are part of paradigms that when people look at and they find funny and they find humorous, they're actually entering into a world system of belief, of which the symbols are referential to make sense to other things. This is a war within the mind. And so you see then, sigil magic actually comes from chaos magic, and chaos magic is a part of postmodern magic. Chaos magic is one of its most noteworthy attributes is that it doesn't believe that there's ultimately truth claims. Postmodernism, right? A world of relativism, a world of subjectivism. And so chaos magic believes that these sort of magical processes are working at a psychological level, and that then we need to utilize these magical processes, these theurgic techniques, because they can affect the unconscious mind, and we can manifest things consciously. Or we can get other people to enter into these systems and manifest them using their minds. And that's ultimately what we're doing here. And that's why 2020 and the lockdown itself is a response to meme magic. You see, the mask was a meme. The coof was a meme. And the way that people respond to that, it positions them really on a spectrum of the meme magic. Which paradigm are they entering based on the self-referential symbolic systems that they understand? And so chaos magic, sigils, and the semiotics of power. This is really what then I'm trying to get at, that chaos magic, as I said, is a form of postmodern magic. There's a total skepticism in regards to the knowability of the world. Total skepticism regarding the knowability of the world. And so perceptions of reality is reality within a chaos magical framework. That perception is controlled by people's beliefs. And so as we then look at meme magic, and we see that there's a right side and there's a left side, they are creating memetically paradigms that are self-referential and that influence one's perspective based on our beliefs. Based on our beliefs. And this is why I'm ultimately going to get at that Christ and Logos theology in a way kind of prevents us, he frees us from being caught into these memetic boxes. These are memetic boxes. And that the truth of Christ, the metaphysical reality of the Logos, which allows semiotics, which allows language to exist, he is ultimately real. And in a way, as we become more traditional, we become closer followers of him, our belief system's totally tied to Christ, and therefore we're not going to get caught up into a right-wing or a left-wing memetic system, which then are self-referential, which are ultimately then constructed by other people's magical wills that are then leading us to become pawns in somebody else's system. And in a way, it's almost like they're both NPCs, right? In a way, if we're not conscientious, both sides become an NPC. Whether it's the right wing or the left wing, both become non-playable characters because both are actually buying into a magical memetic war that is ultimately somebody else's will for them to perceive the world in a certain way. And so when we talk about Trump as our savior, that's a false memetic belief. That is a limiting presupposition. That is a box. That if you're truly a Christ follower, Trump can't save you. And the ways in which we viewed him draining the swamp in 1600, we wouldn't have fell victim to that. And I think all of us probably are closer to Christ now than we were in 2016. And so we can't help but see that there's this process going on, that there really is a societal, magical, memetic war at hand, and that we cannot be reactionary. Just because the left and the LGBTQ people do this, we can't ultimately just do the opposite. Because that's then the dialectical trap, and that's how we get caught into these memetic paradigms that somebody else is magically creating through sigils. So the war is about the manipulation of perception. The war is about the manipulation of perception. We must then, right? This is why it's so interesting. We must then follow Christ. We must then use the logos and logos theology as our lens of perception. Because if we start taking these sort of memetic processes, and now, the whole Keck Pepe thing becomes your personality, it becomes the window in which you look at reality, you're already locked up. You're contained. You're within a box. But you see, Christ and logos and using that's what I do with these streams, right? I'm just using logos theology to look at the world. It sets you free. That's exactly what Christ came to do. Right? The truth will set you free. Christ is the truth. He is the way. He is the life. And so that's why I'm going to end by, once I finish this monologue, I'm going to say that it's not like we should leave the memetic sphere. I think memes are fantastic. I think memes are absolutely the battlefront of culture in the spiritual war. However, my point is that if we as Orthodox, we as Christians move out into the world, we need to make sure that our memes are sort of Christ-themed. Christ-themed. So we're not right-wing, we're not left-wing. It's just traditional Christianity that is being memed into the world that will allow people to flock into that paradigm, which is ultimately the true paradigm. It's like we need logos memes. We need logos memes.